In January of 2026, a 75-year-old man agreed to meet with investigators about a murder that had haunted Michigan for more than 4 decades. He never arrived. By the end of that day, he was dead. For a moment, detectives feared the truth had died with him. It hadn't. He'd been carrying a secret since 1983, one that began with a 16-year-old girl waiting for a school bus. Her name was Sheri Jo Elliott, 16 years old, a student at Carmen High School in Flint, Michigan. She babysat on weekends. She was careful about her appearance. Everything matched, every hair in place. And she was careful about people, too. Family remembered a girl who wouldn't so much as walk up to a stranger's car to give directions. She'd spent 2 years living with her father before moving back in with her mother, Joyce, and stepfather, Robert. By November of 1983, she'd settled into a routine as ordinary as any teenager's. School. Yogurt in the freezer for after class. The young and the restless on television, her nails done before bed. On the morning of November 16, 1983, that routine ended. Sheri Jo left home around 6:30 to walk to her bus stop. She never made it to school. As one family member put it, she would never go with just the clothes on her back. She would never do that. Police initially treated it the way departments across the country still treat missing teenagers, as a runaway. Her family knew better. Nothing was missing from her room. No note, no warning. For 4 days, Flint searched for her. Family passed out flyers. Neighbors checked alleys and dumpsters. Local media picked up the story, and Crime Stoppers posted a reward. Still, nothing. On November 20th, a trapper checking his lines along a rural road in Blumfield Township, roughly 35 miles north of Flint, found her body in a drainage ditch. The autopsy would later reveal something almost unbearable. Sheri Jo hadn't died instantly. She had been shot 4 times, once in the abdomen, twice in the back, once in the back of the head, and investigators believe she may have still been alive for hours afterward, in that ditch, in November in Michigan, before she bled to death. She had also been sexually assaulted. One investigator who worked the scene would later call it a very violent execution. Whoever did this hadn't tried to hide her. He'd simply left her there and driven away. What followed was a familiar, frustrating pattern for cold cases of that era. Investigators, statistically correct that victims often know their killers, focused early scrutiny on Sheri Jo's stepfather. He submitted to questioning, declined a polygraph, and endured a police-monitored phone call with Joyce, meant to draw out a confession that never came. He was never charged. Decades later, DNA would clear him entirely. Meanwhile, thousands of tips poured in, including a report that Sheri Jo had been seen getting into a yellow Camaro. Investigators spent days running down the vehicle. The tip turned out to be a fabrication. A family member later said the man had simply been lying through his teeth, and no one ever understood why. One tip, though, would matter more than anyone realized at the time. Someone reported seeing Sheri Jo near a white van. Investigators did collect a rape kit, clothing, and fingernail clippings from Sheri Jo's body. In 1983, there was no way to turn that evidence into a name. DNA profiling as we know it didn't exist yet. So the evidence went into storage, waiting, as it turned out, for technology that hadn't been invented. The case went cold. Not forgotten, Michigan State Police reopened it more than once over the following decades. In 2002, a state violent crime task force ran DNA comparisons against more than 100 voluntary samples. Nothing matched. That same year, the unknown DNA profile was entered into CODIS, the national database. No hit. The system hadn't even been fully built out yet when Sheri Jo was murdered. For nearly 20 more years, that was where it stayed. A nameless profile sitting in a database, waiting for someone to be related to the right person. While Sheri Jo's mother held on to the fear that they would never find him. In 2023, Michigan State Police's 3rd District Cold Case Unit took another look. This time with help they hadn't had before, the Western Michigan University Cold Case Program. Vetted, fingerprinted, and sworn to confidentiality, college students spent 2 years digitizing and organizing tens of thousands of pages of decades-old case files. In February of 2025, investigators sent the most promising remaining piece of evidence, DNA recovered from Sheri Jo's body, to Othram Labs in Texas. Othram specializes in something called forensic-grade genome sequencing, building a full genetic profile out of DNA, too degraded or too limited for older methods, then running it through genetic genealogy databases to find distant relatives of an unknown suspect. The first result came back pointing to a woman in Wichita, Kansas. She had 79 grandchildren. Investigators flew to Kansas, collected voluntary samples from her and her son, and spent months narrowing that family tree, cross-referencing genetic distance against who could plausibly have been in Michigan in November of 1983. By October 2025, one name stood out: Roni Collins, 75 years old, living less than 15 miles from where Sheri Jo disappeared. Collins wasn't a stranger lurking on the margins. He was a fixture, a bass player who performed under the stage name Hendrix, gigging regularly at a bar in the Flint area for years. By day, he worked as a dental hygienist. He had no significant criminal record. People who knew him used the same word, over and over. One bar owner who'd booked him for years called him one of the nicest guys she'd ever met. In 1983, he would have been 33, squarely the right age and in the right place. And decades earlier, in 1969, a teenage Roni Collins had already crossed paths with investigators once before, though nobody connected the dots at the time. That October, two teenagers, 15-year-old Pamela Hobley and 16-year-old Patricia Spencer, vanished on Halloween night in Oscoda, Michigan, after being seen talking to a man in a van. A young Roni Collins, who drove a van and played in bands around that area, was questioned. He denied knowing anything. The case went cold. The girls were never found. By late 2025, the lead detective on Sheri Jo's case wasn't looking to make an arrest. Not yet. He simply wanted to talk to Roni Collins. They spoke by phone a few times. Collins put him off through the holidays. Finally, they agreed on a date in early January 2026. Collins never showed up. When investigators went to his home to follow up, his wife told them what had happened on the day of that scheduled interview. Roni Collins had died by suicide. Investigators still had one option left: DNA collected during his autopsy. It was compared against the evidence preserved from Sheri Jo's body in 1983, the same evidence collected before DNA testing even existed. It matched. On April 13, 2026, nearly 43 years after Sheri Jo Elliott left for a bus stop she never reached, Michigan State Police announced the case was solved. Roni Collins would never stand trial. There would be no courtroom, no verdict, no sentence. When Sheri Jo's aunt got the news, all she could say was that it had been hell. The identification didn't close the book. It opened a darker question. Detectives now believe Collins may be responsible for the 1969 disappearance of Pamela Hobley and Patricia Spencer in Oscoda, a case that, until now, had no clear suspect at all. A relative of one of those girls said plainly that she believed he had taken them. As of this year, investigators across the Midwest are re-examining other unsolved cases, checking them against his DNA. What looks, from the outside, like one resolved case may be the tip of something much larger. A man who spent more than half a century being the nicest guy in every room he walked into. Sheri Jo Elliott would be in her late 50s now. A career, maybe children, maybe grandchildren. A life that was simply erased on a Wednesday morning in November. What technology finally gave her family wasn't justice, in the way a courtroom delivers it. It was something smaller, and in its own way, just as necessary. A name. An answer. After 43 years of not having one. Her mother said it best when asked what she hoped this would mean for others still waiting. That if it gives anybody some hope, she hopes that helps them. Never give up hope, even after 43 years. If you've watched this far, Follow, like, share, and drop a word or two for Sheri Jo's family.